What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Jericholic8704, here to give you another installment of Raw is Jericholic8704. Today we have Raw from June 21st, 2004. Now, the show opened up with a very dramatic, last week kind of vignette, the ones where they hype up the biggest thing that happened last week. And this last week font was very intense. I was like, okay, they're going to show Shawn Michaels getting killed by Kane. I was wrong. They were just showing Triple H being all nice to Eugene, being very facetious and thinking that Eugene would actually be Triple H's friend and all that. So that was your hype promo. It wasn't Shawn Michaels almost dying on Raw, but that's neither here nor there. So we have our Raw intro. It's emanating from Miami, Florida, and naturally the opening promo features The Rock. So The Rock does his usual finally shtick. The crowd is chanting Rocky. He's pointing out his family, and The Rock points out his fine-ass wife. That was his exact quote. I believe they are divorced now, which is unfortunate. So The Rock gives a shout out to Zach Thomas and Jason Taylor. They were both players of the Miami Dolphins, for those of you who don't know. So he points out Zach Thomas and Jason Taylor of the Miami Dolphins, and then he trashes the Dolphins defense. And then he, in a great moment, he said, "You see this? This is a ring," pointing out the fact that the Dolphins hadn't won a ring since the 70s. And he said, "I know soon you'll bring one of those championships back to Miami." And it's 2017, and Miami is still waiting for that championship. Rock kind of beats around the bush a little bit more, and he says he needs to talk to Eugene. Orton comes out instead of Eugene. Orton says that Eugene is not here because he and Triple H are in a limousine on the way from the hotel to the arena. The crowd chants asshole at Orton, and then Orton says Rock is yesterday's news and that Orton is a much better looking guy than The Rock, and he's the better third generation superstar. The Rock says he agrees with the crowd, and he calls Orton an asshole, and then Rock goes on this tangent about how, Rocky Johnson beat up Cowboy Bob Jr., High Chief Peter Maivia beat up Bob Sr., and then he even said that his grandmother beat up Orton's grandmother and all that, and then he says he remembers meeting Randy Orton when he was a young boy, and Randy Orton was playing with ponies backstage when he was introduced to him. He said Randy Orton was running away from The Rock as a kid, and he ran into King Kong Bundy's ballsack, which was a very great line, but a horrendous visual. And then Rock said he's looked up to Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., and he said one day he's going to whoop his son's candy ass in the middle of the ring. So The Rock is ready to fight. Orton says, "Nah, I'm not dealing with that." So The Rock starts punching Randy Orton. He clotheslines him out of the ring. It looks like there's going to be a brawl. Orton rips off his suit jacket and all that. And then Bischoff comes out, and he says, "I will not have you laying your hands on one of my featured superstars." So he comes out, and he brings out 4 security guards to escort The Rock out of the ring. And he says if The Rock resists, he will be arrested. Now, the opening promo part with Orton and Rock, that stuff was okay. It was all right. Rock's little spiel about Miami and pointing out all the different, pointing out the Dolphins, that was all fine and dandy. It was okay. It was kind of dragging a little bit. I wasn't really into it. However, when The Rock was escorted out of the ring, that is when the promo really got going. The Rock just roasted everyone. Everyone he saw, he just started making fun of him. He was like, "Really, Bischoff, this is the best you got? Where's Snow White and the rest of the 7 dwarves?" And he just said, he called the little security guards Oompa-Loompas, and he said, "You're going to kick out The Rock, no wonder WCW went out of business." He runs into Trish and Tomko, and he tells both of them not to look at the people's strudel. So he runs into Molly Holly. He pulls off her wig, and then he puts it on one of the security guards. He sees Hurricane and Rosie. He calls him Hamburglar and Grimace. That was the usual shtick. And then The Rock runs into Coach, who's all mopey and sad. And The Rock, butters him up, and he hypes him up, and he says they're bros now. And Coach goes for a high five, and then Rock leaves him high and dry. That, ironically, got the biggest reaction of anything on the whole entire show. So eventually, Rock gets into his car. Orton tells him to leave, and then Rock counts down to 3, and he says, "In 3 seconds, you're going to feel a pain like you've never felt before." He counts down from 3. Orton turns around, and Edge spears him. Then we had a backstage segment with Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff tells one of the guards to watch out for Rock, and then Benoit shows up, and he tells Bischoff that Eugene cannot compete with Triple H tonight, and he says if Triple H wants a world title shot, just tell him, and Benoit will put the title on the line against Triple H anytime, any place. So we had a women's championship match, Trish Stratus versus Victoria. I thought about it, especially watching this match. Obviously, the women never got a lot of time in, the early 2000s, mid 2000s, when the women's division was not really highlighted all that much, if at all. And that became apparent when it was like I was watching these women's matches, and especially this one, where it's like they start hot right off the gate. You know what I mean? Because they know in the back of their heads, we only have a couple minutes. We got to make every single second count. So Victoria starts, they don't start with, a lock up. They don't start with some chain wrestling. She starts with a body slam and a standing moonsault, like two high spots after the other. That's the opening gig of the match. So Trish goes to the outside, Victoria goes for her, but Tomko gets in the way. Trish gets the heat off a distraction. So Trish works her over for a bit, and then Trish Stratus mimics Victoria's little standing moonsault thing. Victoria tries to come back, but Trish cuts her off and puts her in a chin lock. Victoria powers out and starts a comeback. She hits a side slam for a near fall, and then Trish gets whipped into the corner. She slams on the brakes so she doesn't collide with the turnbuckle. Then Trish turns around, and then she eats the biggest super kick I've ever seen. It was right on the chin. It was a perfect shot. So Victoria's about to win the title, and then Tyson Tomko pulls Trish Stratus outside the ring. Trish hits a roll-up for the win. So then Trish and Tomko, after the match, begin to attack Victoria, but she is saved by, of all people, the Mystery Woman. I totally forgot about this angle. So for those of you who don't know, the Mystery Woman was an angle where this woman who in like a redheaded, she wore like this pink cardigan and this skirt, and she had like a redheaded wig. She would come in and save Victoria from any like sort of distress. And it's weird that they debuted this thing in June because, spoiler alert, for any of you who do not want to know the shocking outcome of the Mystery Woman angle, the Mystery Woman was Steven Richards in drag, and they didn't find this out. They blew this off at Unforgiven 2004. It was Trish Stratus versus Victoria. Trish beat Victoria, and then the Mystery Woman came and attacked Tyson Tomko afterwards. And in a completely unannounced match, Tyson Tomko just called out the Mystery Woman, and he ripped apart Steven Richards, who was just in drag, and he was wearing like a tighty whities, and Tyson Tomko beat Steven Richards in like 4 minutes. So that was that. So then we had a Shawn Michaels update. They showed clips of Shawn Michaels being killed, and JR says that HBK's injuries are far more serious and says it'll be a long time before Shawn Michaels is back in the ring. So then we had another backstage segment with Bischoff and Regal. Regal says Eugene cannot face Triple H tonight, and Regal says Eugene is a huge success, and Bischoff should just roll with it. Bischoff says Eugene is embarrassing him every single time he goes out to the ring, but he can't just fire him because he has a board of trustees that he has to answer to, and he can't wrongfully terminate any of his wrestlers. So instead, he's just going to have one dude go in there and beat the shit out of another person. And he says this live on TV that he's going to have someone beat the hell out of his nephew, so his nephew will be forced to quit due to embarrassment. Regal says he loves Eugene, and even though Eugene loves Eric Bischoff, Bischoff just treats him like a bunch of dirt. Regal was really getting fired up, and that was one thing. Regal's actually a very good promo, and what's great about Regal is he's very emotional, and I don't mean that in a bad way. He can really emotionally invest himself into his angles, and you felt like Regal was really into this. You felt like he really cared about Eugene, which is something really, really great. And you saw like William Regal character development. You know what I mean? You rarely see that in anything wrestling related, but like you felt like Regal was a changed man. I'll give William Regal credit for that. He really put himself over in a really believable managerial role here. Like he really felt like he cared about Eugene. So Bischoff says since Regal has done such a great job with Eugene being a manager and all, Eugene is going to go to the ring alone, and Regal will have a match, and that match will be next. So we have a match with William Regal. He's in his street clothes, and then all of a sudden, Kane's pyro hits. Regal starts right out of the gate. He attacks Kane. However, Kane powers back. He throws William Regal outside the ring. He chokeslams him into the ropes in kind of a weird spot, and then he boots him right in the face, and William Regal is knocked out. The match never really got started. It was more of a segment, but Kane just kind of beat the hell out of William Regal so he wouldn't be involved in the main event tonight. So then we had another backstage segment. Kane comes into Eric Bischoff's office and he says, "Is that what you wanted, for me to kill William Regal?" And Bischoff says, "That's exactly what I wanted. I knew you were a professional." And he announces that next week, Benoit will face Kane in a bad blood rematch for the World Heavyweight Championship. Bischoff tells Kane that he can take the rest of the night off, and then Kane says, "Oh no, you ain't seen nothing yet." And Bischoff is very skeptic of this. So I forgot to mention this earlier. This will be the second clip of the Diva Search qualifying round, I guess you want to call it that. These promos were so fucking awful. it was clips of auditions from Chicago, and some of this stuff was so painful to watch. And here's my thing about the Diva search. They already had all their contestants picked out, so it really just felt like a BS reality show. It felt like bootleg American Idol. You know, it's all these girls like, I didn't get picked, and they're trying to act all sad and everything. This was our second round of clips, and they were absolutely awful. And it just showed all these girls who clearly had zero personality. There was one girl with her mom who was like trying to act like she was sad and trying to act like she cared, and the mom was like, oh, shake it off, you're better than that, and all that. Like, it was so painful to watch. So then we had a tag team match, Evolution versus Chris Jericho and Edge. Edge and Batista start, and Edge lights him up, and Batista beats on him. Batista tags in Orton, who gets one punch in and then taunts. Edge cuts him off and then starts beating up on him. They go back and forth. Orton throws Edge into the corner and tags in Batista. Batista gets the heat on Edge a little bit more. He charges Edge in the corner, who ducks out of the way. Edge makes a hot tag to Jericho. Jericho runs wild on Orton and Batista. He is beating up both of them. Eventually, Edge gets back in the ring and they do some double team moves. They eventually hit like a double baseball slide on Randy Orton. Edge goes out to, beat up on Orton some more on the outside, and then Batista sneaks back into the ring and hits a huge clothesline on Jericho. Jericho's head bounces off the ring, and they run like a concussion angle where Jericho's unable to continue because the clothesline was so devastating from Batista that it just knocked him loopy and he couldn't compete for the rest of the match. So they go to commercial break and they come back, and Edge is basically in a 2-on-1 handicap match. So Orton beats up on Edge, he tags in Batista, and Batista beats him up some more. Edge kind of makes a hot tag to himself. He hits the Edge-o-matic on Batista. He starts trying to make a comeback. He hits big moves on both of them. Orton goes for the RKO, and Edge is able to reverse it. He pushes him off and then hits a spear, but Batista breaks up the pin. Then Batista decks Edge right in the face. I'm pretty sure this drew blood. This drew real blood, because you really wouldn't bleed on your cheek, but that's where Edge was bleeding. And then he hits the big sit-out powerbomb, and then Orton, because Edge is dead weight at this point, he slowly rises Edge to his feet. He taunts him a little bit more and then hits him with an RKO for the win. This is actually a very, very good match. I enjoyed it for what it was worth. Obviously, the match kind of slowed down after Jericho got taken out of it, but that was the point of it. And this is a very, very good match. It kind of made you feel bad for the baby faces, considering, the thing was, it was kind of weird because technically Evolution won this match. I don't want to say fair and square, but I mean, it's not like they went to underhanded tactics to take out Jericho. Batista just completely overpowered them. He just hit Jericho so hard that Jericho literally couldn't continue. It's not like they took Jericho out of the match, or it's not like Batista wrapped his arm in barbed wire or something. They just legitimately knocked out Jericho to the point where they had a 2-on-1 advantage. And obviously, Edge is the courageous babyface that's going to continue a match even without a partner. But, it made him feel bad because obviously Edge had the disadvantage, so you feel bad for him there. But at the same time, Evolution kind of did everything on their own, so it's really kind of hard to take a side here. Obviously, I'm kind of being a mark in that sense of looking at it from this deep of a perspective, but still. So after that, we had another horrendous Diva Search segment. This time, it was the Diva Search bikini contest. It was just a bunch of girls in their bikinis, and Coach is just asking them questions like, "How old are you? What's your name? Why do you want to be a WWE diva?" And just these girls "I want to kick some ass with some beautiful girls," and it's just them in bikinis, and it's really, I was so done with this Diva Search, and it hasn't even started yet. So after that, they showed clips of wrestlers encouraging young voters to vote in the 2004 election. So then we had a backstage segment with Matt and Stacy Keibler. Stacy shows up and she hugs Matt and says, "Oh my God, I'm so happy you're going to be a father." And Matt says, "Yeah, I'm going to be a father, but I'm also going to be something else." And he pulls out a ring. And Stacy's like, "Oh my God, you're going to propose to Lita. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you too." Again, Stacy's reaction, like Lita's pregnancy last week, was actually very genuine here. So then Matt pulls out the ring and he says, "Stacy, please, whatever you do, don't tell anyone." Which again begs the question, why are you announcing this on Live Raw? So then we had a limousine pull up, and it's Eugene, Triple H, and Ric Flair. Eugene's playing with some wrestling figures, and he's wearing the same Evolution gear that he got last week. Triple H and Flair are being all friendly with Eugene, and they tell him that he's dressing in Evolution's locker room tonight. Then we had our Matt Hardy segment. Matt calls Lita and says he's happy to be starting a family with her. Matt gets down on one knee and asks Lita to marry him. And then Kane shows up on the Titantron and he says, "Matt, you might want to not ask Lita to marry you because the baby that she's carrying, it's not yours, it's mine. Matt Hardy starts freaking out. He's beside himself. He's telling Kane to get his ass to the ring so he can beat him up. And he says, hey, if you don't believe me, ask Lita. And of course, Lita starts breaking down. She starts crying and everything. Matt Hardy's freaking out too. And eventually, fast forward, they go to commercial and they come back. When they come back from commercial, they're backstage. And Lita meets up with Matt and she says, I slept with him to protect you. So let me break this down for all of you. What we have here is a rape pregnancy storyline. Hooray! Because this is what I want to see on WWE TV. Lita slept with Kane because Kane forced her to sleep with him and threatened violence if she did not, therefore rape. And the problem with this is rape storylines are not meant for WWE TV for two reasons. Two big reasons. One, wrestling, even though it is a performance, even though it is scripted, even though there are storylines, there is a line that you have to draw, and there is a line with storylines to the point where it doesn't belong in a wrestling show. Like, I'm fine with a love triangle, because that can be fun and interesting, but something like pregnancy, marriage, miscarrying and rape and stuff like that, really heavy stuff. Wrestling is already wacky to begin with. You know what I mean? And this climaxes in a match where Matt Hardy is going to avenge the rape of his girlfriend. He's going to deal with his girlfriend's rapist in a sanctioned wrestling match in front of a crowd. That makes no sense. You know what I mean? With a love triangle, with something silly like a love triangle, you can kind of play it up, like it's like you can kind of play along with it. But you can't really make rape a fun storyline. You know what I mean? You really can't make it so it's really enjoyable to watch. It's really uncomfortable. It happens to a lot of people, and it's really traumatic when it happens to someone. So why trivialize it in a storyline? You know what I mean? And same thing, and I mean, eventually this leads down to Lita. Lita's going to eventually miscarry her baby. Spoiler alert, again, for storyline 2004. Lisa's going to miscarry her baby. Because like Snitsky hits Kane with a chair, and Kane falls on Lita, and Lita miscarries her baby. And secondly, storylines like this, I'm not saying, heavy subject matter should not be addressed on TV. I'm quite the contrary. I definitely think any sort of art, like film, theater, anything like that, has full, capacity to really, handle these types of issues. However, don't put it on some sort of program where the performers are not actors. Just seeing Matt Hardy and Lita. Now, I'm not saying they were horrible, but, Matt Hardy was acting very cartoony. Some of the facial expressions he was making when he just found out that his girlfriend had been raped and the baby was not his. Just like, I really feel like he wouldn't be making those faces. I don't know. Again, I'm always a big stickler for acting because I'm a theater major and everything. But stuff like this, when it's really heavy subject matter, you don't really want this to be, these actors to be, you know what I mean? You don't want wrestlers to be your performers. That's all I'm saying. So then we had more fucking Diva Search videos. It just showed Coach being like, nope, see ya. Hey, we like you. Why don't you stay? So it was just really boring, really annoying, and I was pretty much fed up with it. Then we had a backstage segment with Evolution and Eugene. Eugene is warming up backstage. Eugene asks where William Regal is, and Triple H blows him off. Bischoff comes in, he wishes Eugene luck, and then Triple H blows a gasket and says, we all see through your facade, Bischoff. Why don't you get the hell out of here? Eugene and I are bros. Eugene goes to get, I guess, to gorilla position, I guess. And as soon as he leaves the locker room, Triple H and Bischoff, they all start laughing. He's like, oh my God, I'm going to kill him. So then we had Eugene versus Triple H. Now, this was actually a very interesting match. In all honesty, it was actually kind of good. I actually really liked the story of this match. Again, I made my thoughts known on the Eugene character, and I thought how it was kind of a missed opportunity to really, have a positive message towards those with mental disabilities. But Some of the things they did do right with Eugene, one thing is, they didn't make him a joke in the ring. He went toe-to-toe with Triple H, and he was out-wrestling Triple H, and that was the story. It's like Triple H had to use manipulative tactics to defeat Eugene, and, Triple H eventually suckered in Eugene. He's like, "You're hurting me, Eugene, you're hurting me," and of course Eugene feels bad, and then Triple H suckers him in, hits him with a sucker punch, and then, he starts beating up on Eugene some more. Eugene starts to come back, he hulks up, and then he hits an inverted atomic drop, traditional atomic drop. He does an airplane spin, he does a double axe handle. Triple H goes for the pedigree, but Eugene backdrops him. Triple H charges him, but Eugene hits a rock bottom and then a people's elbow. So eventually, Triple H slides out of the ring after he gets all these finishers, and he's all disheveled and beat up and everything. Eugene politely helps him back into the ring, and as he gets back into the ring, Eugene gets pedigreed by Triple H. He's about to go for the win, and then Bischoff comes out and he says, whoa, Triple H, your job was not to beat Eugene, it was to beat the holy hell out of Eugene. Triple H comes out and he grabs a chair. Benoit comes in for the rescue. He starts attacking Triple H. He grabs the chair and he fights off Triple H, Ric Flair, and all the other members of Evolution come out to ringside. He goes for one big chair shot on Triple H, but Triple H moves and he decks Eugene right in the face with a chair. Benoit's all concerned. He's looking after Eugene, and then Triple H comes in and pedigrees Chris Benoit. And then Triple H's music plays, even though he never really pinned anyone, but I guess he won the match. And King really tried to make it obvious that he was going to be the next number one contender, even though he hadn't won the match. He was like, that man right there, he's got to be your new number one contender. So Triple H is the number one contender, and we all know he went to the World Heavyweight Championship match of Vengeance. So I guess it was decided in this match. So that was it for this Raw. It was a very, very good Raw, very entertaining Raw, aside from the rape stuff with Matt Hardy, Lita, and Kane, but we all know that match kind of sucked. Anyway, this is a very, very good Raw. My name is Jericholic8704, and I will see all of you guys later.